G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds everyone well. Today I just wanted to show you a quick sample edit of an image that I photographed recently in Lamington National Park. There's a couple of elements in this image that I thought worked particularly well. Obviously identifying the trail there, as well as the really interesting root system and structures on this plant with the ferns at the bottom, this tree, with the ferns and what have you at the bottom there. Also found the lighting to be particularly nice as well. One of the things that I look for with these, or really any image, is for the light to work with what I want to do with the edit after the fact. So generally I don't like to really push the edits too heavily on my images, but certainly I try to look for opportunities with lighting where it naturally leans towards the final result that I'm looking for. So this is the raw image with no adjustments made. It was shot on a Canon R3 at 17mm, 1/80th of a second at f4.5 and shot at ISO 4000. Now, I did actually have a tripod with me, and I could have done a longer exposure image at a lower ISO, but I was actually just really enjoying the day and being able to shoot a little bit more freely, I guess, without the constraints of always having to set up a tripod and stopping and all the rest of it. So shooting handheld, pushing the ISO a little bit, which I knew that I could with the R3. And knowing that I would still get reasonably clean images and a good base image to work with. So obviously, as part of this process, the R3 is a pretty amazing camera with low light, as is a lot of cameras new to the market nowadays, certainly in recent years. But we'll still, there'll still be a little bit of noise there, which I will apply some noise reduction to as well. So I'm choosing to do the edits today in Adobe Camera Raw, obviously using Adobe Bridge to sort through images and identify the ones that I want to edit. You can see I've given this image a 5-star rating down the bottom. So let's get into it. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is go down to detail, and I'm going to look at the image at 100%. And I'm going to try and find a section that has a good mix of shadow and highlight areas. Now, you can see in this image the lighting's pretty soft. There's no true dark areas, and there's no true bright areas either. So, yeah, it's a pretty good base image to work with. So I'm also going to apply both luminance and color noise reduction. Not huge amounts, but I'm just going to eyeball the image as I go, and it's, as is a lot of the case with a lot of the tools that I employ for editing. I'll often come back and revisit stuff if I feel the need. So yeah, around 25 for each of those there, just to take some of that noise out, and it looks pretty good. Let's just move that around. Yep, I think that's all fine. So there's still reasonably good detail everywhere there, so that works pretty well. All right, so let's get into the normal editing process. So first thing I'm going to do is just drop the exposure overall a little bit, not much, as you can see. Drop the highlights a little bit there as well, and I'm just going to boost the shadows. I'm going to put a tiny bit of contrast in there, but I don't want to put too much in because it's not really an image that I want to have high contrast. In fact, I want to try and make the image look as soft as possible. Now, not soft from a sharpness perspective, but just overall as soft lighting as possible. So, which is why I'm just trying to pull everything in, and in terms of brighter areas, as well as lift up anything in the shadow areas as well. I'm just going to add a little bit of color temperature just to warm up, and I'm particularly paying attention to this area here. That area I think will show off the warmth the best, and it's an area that I'm going to consciously highlight a little bit as well. Now, heading down to vibrance and saturation, what I'm going to do is just add about plus 30 in vibrance, plus 35 maybe. Again, it might be a setting that I come back and revisit, but I don't want it to be obscene amounts of I guess, color intensity, but I certainly want to show off the beautiful greens and tones that you would normally see in such an environment. All right, heading down to detail, just going to increase the sharpening a little bit. I don't want to go overboard, and I'm just going to increase that masking, just holding down my Alt key there. Obviously, I'm on a PC, just so that I can mask out some of the areas, and only apply the sharpening to areas that I think really needs sharpening. Optics, obviously it's already pre-checked, remove chromatic aberration, and to use a profile correction for that 17-40 lens. Now you can see it's applying a 1D Mark III profile there. I can only assume, and this is a completely up-to-date version of Photoshop, but I can only assume that the Canon R3 profile is not in there as yet. That obviously might be being added in the future at some point, but it might be something that I just do a little bit of investigating with. It's interesting that the R3 profile isn't in there, given that the R3 has been out for a little while now. All right, what we're going to do now is just start to work with a little bit of a few of the areas in the image that we want to highlight and give a little bit more attention to. So I'm just going to go up to my adjustment brush, and I'm just going to start by looking at this main tree and slightly brighter area in the foreground, and a little bit of attention moving down the trail. You can see that the feather is all the way up to 100 and the brush size is not huge, but it's enough to work with. All right, so until we actually apply a change, you can just see the red mask overlay color, which if you want to change is right there. So what I'm going to do is just apply a little bit of exposure, a little bit of shadow lift there, and you can see immediately that just has a really nice effect, just highlighting the trunk of that tree. It's quite nice. And that's certainly the direction that I want to be going. I'm also going to apply a little bit just out over here on the ferns. And what I might actually do is create a new mask and a brush, because I don't necessarily want to use the same brush for the entire image. And the benefits, of course, is just a sense of control over what areas receive what treatment. Excellent. All right, so just wanted to bring up the detail in the upper part of that tree within the frame, just to bring out a little bit more detail. You can see I'm not really trying to make any edits with the image that make it look unrealistic. I'm really just working with the lighting that was already there, obviously within the constraints of what the camera can capture. So I'm pretty happy with that. I still shoot fully manually, and I'm certainly not an advocate for only shooting manually, because there's obviously, many ways to achieve, a desired outcome. And cameras are so incredibly good nowadays at capturing things in camera. It's really just out of habit from shooting film days, and then obviously moving to digital. I've always remained with shooting manually, and it's something that I feel completely comfortable with and continue to do so. All right, I'm just going to work on that tree trunk a little bit more, but I just want to reduce the size of my brush. And I'm just going to bring that down like so. So as I was mentioning, I certainly don't believe that the only way to shoot is manual. I've met and worked with some incredible photographers over the years who shoot in a variety of settings, from aperture priority, time priority, fully manually, sometimes on program mode. And, the results that they get are amazing. Yep, that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with where that is at the moment. What I might do is just remove a little bit of that, just to bring that first adjustment, just to bring that attention into the central part of the image. Yeah, that looks good. And again, I'm just going to subtract a little bit. Actually, let's add back in. See, sometimes that process of adding or subtracting can really help you to understand exactly what's working and what isn't. So it is often a process of just experimentation, seeing what works. I really like this path, even though it's kind of very straight, which you don't often see on bushwalking trails around the place. But I do like that it kind of leads the eye through the frame, but also the wonderful texture and nature of this tree and the ferns and everything. You know, it's almost like you kind of stop and pause as well. So I'm really enjoying how that's looking. So as I said, I shoot fully manually, and what I try and do is capture a base image that's as close as possible to what I want to see as a final result, and then just add in a few little highlights, very similar to what I used to do in darkrooms, around giving you a little bit more or less exposure to certain areas of the image. And if we look at both versions now, you can see that it is very subtle, the changes that I've made. And I'm liking it. I'm liking the way that it looks. And how it's working. So, hope that those tools have been useful. So looking at the detail nice and close with this image, I'm pretty happy with how that's all come out. That all looks very good. This probably wouldn't be an image that I would blow up to a huge print. But it's a lovely image that represents, you know, what it would be like to be there. I guess, for want of better words, it certainly is reminiscent of a lot of trails that I've experienced visiting Lamington National Park over the last, many years. Probably more years than I want to admit to. But it is a beautiful place, and if you have the opportunity to spend some time there, I thoroughly recommend it. So that's the edits for this image, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'll probably sit with it for a few days, come back and have another look and just see how I feel about it. Hope watching this edit has been of benefit, and it maybe has given you some ideas on how you might edit your images. Of course, any questions are always welcome. Please leave them in the comments below, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.